You essentially snuck this section into an omnibus bill that was supposed to be about budget implementation.
Well, I don't know how it could be that I snuck it in. I made two committee appearances. We spent an entire day in the House of Commons debating it.
It's an omnibus bill, something you used to criticize. We've talked about that before.
I don't think snuck was the right verb there.
No, but
Gang, what's up? Aaron here, Kennedy and Looney. Let's hop over to question period and check out Vassy Kapelos and House Leader Steven MacKinnon. Steven MacKinnon is an absolute career politician. Oh, he's a creep. Let's listen to what he's going to be sneaking around, being creepy about with Vassy right now. Let's take a peek. Let's go.
the growing divide over a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure project. The proposed Alto High Speed Rail project would connect Quebec City to Toronto. Travelers could, for example, make it from Toronto to Montreal in just over 3 hours. But this week, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre announced his firm opposition to the transit project.
We think that it's a waste of money. It's going to drive up the cost of living. Taxes are going to be higher. It will cost every family $8,000 in higher taxes for a project that they will not use. It will ruin communities, many of whom will see the train tear apart land, even though the local residents will not be able to use it.
For more on this, I'm joined by Government House Leader and Minister of Transport, Steve MacKinnon. Hi, Minister. Good to see you. Thank you for making the time.
Thanks for having me, and happy Easter.
Happy Easter to you as well. I wanted to start off on the prospect of this high-speed train going ahead. Is there any chance, based on what happens over the next number of years in this assessment, that your government says no to it, or is the mandate to make it work no matter what?
The mandate is to plan and execute on building this transformational infrastructure. We're currently in a planning period that lasts 4 years. If the Conservatives had their way, that planning process would have gone a lot longer, up to 8-10 years, or the Bloc Québécois for that matter. We want to build more quickly. We want to plan this project more quickly. Incredibly complex project, but we think we can have shovels in the ground within 4 years.
I understand the impetus for building things quickly. I think the concern, as I understand it, represented by both the Bloc and the Conservatives, but also existing in many areas along this, somewhat proposed route, is that in the name of speed, you will sacrifice sort of like a duty to consult them or a duty to defer to them in some way. They are afraid, to put it plainly, that their land will be expropriated. And that
They're going to walk right through everybody, guaranteed.
fear was heightened by what was passed in the Budget Implementation Act, which essentially allows you to, Alto, to go to you if they would like to expropriate that land and bypass measures that otherwise would have been in place. Why did you have to do that?
Well, again, we need to reduce this planning phase that we're in down to 4 years. But let me be very reassuring. First of all, Alto is a 60-meter wide corridor. It is a linear project, therefore it needs to go uninterrupted between the cities that you just mentioned. 60 meters is not a lot of land. We will obviously follow a lot of common sense, use public right-of-way when possible, electrical, utility corridors, highways where possible. And when not possible, we'll obviously apply common sense as well. We don't want to be dividing people's properties, farms, impeding access to rural roads or anything like that. So there will be all sorts of measures. The issue that we have now is we've identified a 10-kilometer wide corridor, and some politicians, Mr. Poilievre, like to pretend that that is the amount of land that
He's so greasy all the time, every time. Steve MacKinnon is gross.
Alto is going to require. That is not the case. It is a 60-kilometer wide, a 60-meter wide rather, corridor stretching from Quebec City to Toronto.
I understand why you're opposing what Mr. Poilievre said, but it isn't just him, right? I read a lot today and
Go Vassy, go Vassy.
found out that there are a lot of rural municipalities, for example, some councils that have even voted in opposition of this, because though you say that you're going to use common sense, that does not assure them that that will be the case, right? You have done in this Budget Implementation Act, you have kind of put in there this thing about this project that does allow, with less impediments, you to expropriate land.
Due process continues to exist, and impact assessments, environmental impact assessments
They've been cut in half, though. It's only one agency, not the CTA
will
as
still
well.
be followed. Well, we are working at getting all projects, large and small in Canada, out of this cycle where it takes decades to get a project approved. Yes, we are doing that. But we're reducing this plan. And guess what? We are going to save billions of dollars by bringing forward the start of construction on this project. That is important. But, you know, in terms of the Conservatives, they used to think big. You know, Brian Mulroney used to think big. Heavens, John A. MacDonald, you know, used to think in terms of building an intercontinental railroad. The Conservative Party itself, at their last convention, passed a resolution asking the government to build high-speed rail. Dean Del Mastro, former, the very riding Mr. Poilievre was in the other day, former MP for Peterborough, used to be a prime advocate for high-speed rail. And let's talk about Peterborough. That's a perfect example. A smaller city, which will find a new vocation. So in addition to all of the amazing things that currently happen in Peterborough, the access that it will give to the outside world, to Ottawa, to Toronto, to Montreal, for residents of Peterborough. So you can imagine going to Toronto to study. You can imagine working in Ottawa. These are possibilities that are absolutely transformational and that high-speed rail can offer.
I think you're right that there are challenging questions for the leader of the Conservatives about the party's position, and many of them were put to him at both press conferences he held this week by a number of reporters. But when you talk about imagining all the possibilities, right now it is just our imagination that we have, right? And I think there are also genuine questions from people who could be in the way of or part of where this route goes through about your government's ability and this Crown Corporation's ability to execute on what you have imagined. I looked at the consortium that has, you know, the private sector consortium that will essentially be in charge of or tasked with implementing this and operating it. One of the companies is what used to be SNC. People in this city have a very, very distinct memory of what SNC was a part of, another consortium that delivered an LRT that was well beyond the promised cost and encountered many, many delays. Why should we believe this time will be different?
Well, that firm is in a consortium with people like SNCF, the French.
Smash the like, hit subscribe. We work really hard at this stuff. Let's get back to the video.
TGV builder who have been successful. I've visited their facilities at the Gare de Lyon in Paris. It's been an incredible accomplishment to see high-speed rail through France. And remember that France, we go through a lot of farmland. They go through a lot of densely populated areas. They go through a lot of rich heritage sites, and this is something that we are able to execute in Canada. We used to, growing up, this was a dream, high-speed rail. What we're saying to Canadians now is it can be real. We can give this gift.
Does anybody really want this high-speed rail? Like, I don't live in that area, so it won't affect me at all, but it'll be expensive. Does anybody really care?
Gift to our children. If we had started 30 years ago, we'd have it now. And it's something that Canadians probably should have demanded of their governments 30 years ago. The old proverb says, what's the best time to plant a tree? It was 20 years ago. The next best time is tomorrow. And we're very much taking that approach here in building this major piece of infrastructure that will be absolutely transformational for our economy. Is complex, there's no doubt about that. And we will have to be listening very, very carefully to all of the people you mentioned, to Reeves, to mayors, to agriculture groups. We will be doing that.
You're gonna make sure this thing happens no matter what. And
I wonder why that is. I wonder why that is. Like, is it because they're just a steamrolling government that doesn't care about the people? They just want the votes?
That sense is buoyed by the fact that you essentially snuck this section into an omnibus bill that was supposed to be about budget implementation.
Well, I don't know how it could be that I snuck it in. I made 2 committee appearances. We spent an entire day in the House of Commons debating it.
It's an omnibus bill, something you used to criticize. We've talked about that before.
I don't think snuck was the right verb there.
No, but if this were something standalone that could be debated by the MPs who represent constituents who are concerned about what this prospect, the prospect of this project means in real terms, suburbs. That would be a substantive debate. Putting it in a bill that, if it was defeated, would defeat your government does not equate to a substantive debate.
Well, look, this is a project that it covers 40% of Canada's population. And by the way, that does not mean we stop there. I think high-speed rail is a technology that we have to contemplate for other regions of Canada as well. But we have to get this project, do it right, consult, listen, be very, very sensitive. We need to explain the benefits. They are considerable for our environment. They are considerable for our economy. Think of the trade union men and women who will build this, 51,000 people strong. Think of the Canadian steel and lumber and aluminum that will go into building this project. This is a true transformational, generational investment that we're making for Canada. And we like to say that we're going to build Canada strong. This is an essential part of doing just that.
Will it be affordable for people who are using it? Because that consortium will also operate it, meaning there will not be competition on which company ends up operating which routes, that kind of thing. That to me does not sound like a recipe for a cheap ticket price.
Well, first of all, we will be maintaining Via Rail service, so
which is not cheap either.
We need to be very reassuring to folks about that. People who rely on Via Rail service will continue to enjoy Via Rail service, and the operating model of high-speed rail will be put out to tender. It will go to the lowest bidder. So there's no final arrangement yet on an operating model for high-speed rail.
Final question on a larger issue around affordability. The Conservatives are asking your government to consider taking off the federal portion of the gas tax until 2027 to augment the increased price at the pump that Canadians are really feeling in a punctuated way right now. Are you considering that?
Well, we are obviously very sensitive to the high price of energy caused by this war in Iran. And these are entirely external factors, nothing to do with the fundamentals of Canada,
No, it has nothing to do with our taxes there, bud.
as you know, Canada is a major petroleum and gas exporter. We're going to make sure that we do our part to continue to make shortages elsewhere in the world less of a factor. So obviously this is something we're watching on a daily basis. We see a lot of price fluctuations. As we get more clarity, we'll be able to continue to assess the situation.
So just respectfully, I wasn't blaming you or your government for this. I know that this is because of what's happening in Iran, but there's not a lot of fluctuation right now. It's all fluctuation around a much higher price at the pump. The question is whether you would consider relieving the federal portion of the gas tax at any point to offer some relief to Canadians.
It's an interesting idea that I heard from Mr. Polyev, but I haven't been part of any discussion about removing the gas tax. No.
Okay, Minister, I'll leave it there. I appreciate your time as always. Thank you.
Canada's broken, and Canada's broken because we're stupid. Okay? Canada's broken because we're stupid.
We'll wrap it up right there, gang. Aaron, Canadian Looney, smash the like, hit subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you think about our House Leader, Steven MacKinnon. Whoo, he is... let me know in the comments what you think. I think you know what I think. Thank you for watching the video. We'll catch you in the next one. Ciao for now. Get your Canadian federal politics right here.